Share. All right. So, welcome to All Wallet Devs number 15. Sorry I missed the last one. Today, we're going to be talking about some updates from Wallet Test Framework, and we have a presentation about the injected wallet registry proposal. And then we'll have time for whatever else afterwards. So, first up is an update from Wallet Testing Framework. If you haven't been following along, and if you haven't, shame on you. It's a testing framework for wallets designed to do end-to-end testing from the perspective of a DApp. We have about 62 tests right now, and we just finished our first round of trying it out with different wallets. So I'm going to share those results and talk a little bit about them. I want to make it very clear that this isn't like me criticizing your wallet. It's equally likely that the test is broken. And similarly, it's not me endorsing a wallet because I have no idea what I'm doing. So without further discussion, let me show you what the results are. Once I find the button, there it is. All right, so this is a very manual process. So we went through and tested these wallets here. So we have Brave, Tahoe, Frame, Encrypt, Coinbase, MetaMask, OKX, Token Pocket, and a bunch of ones that couldn't connect. So on the top we have Brave Wallet and Tallyho or Tahoe. I guess they changed the name. You guys passed every test we have, so good job. Again, not really endorsing you. It's just cool that we weren't even using you until a few weeks ago, and everything passed. We have been developing with Frame, and they have everything working except signed transaction. Encrypt also has a really decent score, but has some problems with not displaying enough information to fill in the boxes that the tests require. So that's in the notes. So Coinbase also did exceptionally well. Just a few problems with hex prefixes missing, so no 0x's. Tiny little bug. MetaMask surprisingly just didn't work in a lot of places. I haven't really looked into why, but if anybody knows anybody from MetaMask that'd be willing to work with me on debugging, let me know. That goes for everybody. OKX and Token Pocket both died in the same place. So somewhere around the get filter changes tests, they just stopped responding to requests. And I'm not sure if that's a problem with our tests or with the wallet, but we're going to be looking into that. And then we have a bunch that didn't even connect. And some of that's because I don't know what I'm doing. And I think Orange X is a great example of that. Some of them we can't support because like Sequence and Exodus because they don't support custom RPC endpoints. So we can't test them. And then BitKeep failed because of a system error, and they don't provide any more information than that. So I have no idea what's going on there. But look forward to more of these kind of reports as we build more tests and try more wallets. You can follow along at wtf.allwallet.dev. And if you want to work with us to, help improve your score or fix tests, reach out to me. I'm on Twitter, here on Discord. I'd appreciate it. That's about it for me. All right. So, anybody have any questions about Wallet Test Framework? Oh, sure, Shane. I'll reach out to you after. What's your Discord username? Perfect. Thank you so much. Um, I see somebody has their hand up. Feel free to just talk.
Hey, Sam. Uh, just Kyle from Brave. Just want to say awesome work on this. I'm very surprised that we are passing all the tests. I figured we'd be one of the people who were breaking some of the tests at times because we're used to running into wallet compatibility issues along the way. So, very awesome work at this, and I'm looking forward to using this kind of as a tool that we can grow with as a community together so that we can make sure that we're hitting compatibility and making it easier on dApps going forward. So thanks for doing all the hard legwork on this.
And thanks for building a wallet and working with the process. Like it's been a pleasure working with you guys. Awesome.
Yeah, if I may, of course, yeah, thank you so much for putting your time in. It's really great to see this get started. I was wondering about running these tests in CI and if you guys have any tentative plans around facilitating these tests being run against various wallets, various branches, or yeah, any kind of strategy for running this automatically.
Yeah, we do actually. So the whole
Sweet.
goal of this is to build an automated testing framework. We don't want to have to be clicking on buttons all the time. So if you'd like to, meet with us and figure out the right way to integrate this with your CI, please let me know because I need to do that to get more funding. So yeah, hit me up on Discord and we can talk about it.
Sick. Cool. Yeah, will do.
I'm definitely interested in doing that on our side, but ours are probably going to be a bit different because we would probably write these as browser tests or take a look at that, which is like a very Chromium specific thing. Um, in order to fit it in with our the way that ours work, but um, our end goal is to see this work very similar to how like the web platform tests work. I know you are familiar with that, Sam, but I don't know if other people are. It's basically WPT.live. That's the example framework that pretty much all browsers use. And when you encounter something like can I use .com, that's basically pulling all that test information from there in order to figure out like which browsers are working and which ones aren't with specific features within browsers. So um, my goal is to see that basically the same thing for the wallets and create what I like to call like a Web3 platform. I'm hoping that we can kind of move in that direction because effectively what I see coming from this is the ability for us to start iterating on new APIs with kind of an opt-in model where it's like some people may support them, some may not, and then we can start to see like new APIs coming about from this, which allows for greater functionality within wallets, hopefully higher level APIs for things like signing, so that we can get some better UXs as well and kind of moving from there.
Yeah, I think one of the motivating like use cases for this framework is to define tests up front that then wallets can implement like later on, as opposed to one wallet doing it and everybody else having to copy them. So hopefully we can be a little bit more integrated and interop better.
Yeah, definitely
Cool.
that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Oh, I'm glad we're aligned. So, Bumblefudge in the chat has asked for an overview of the architecture, so I can give a very, very brief description of how it works. And then, if you want more information, there's an architecture post on wtf.allwallet.dev, and that goes into a little bit more depth. But yeah, at its core, it's kind of like there's a DApp, and it connects using Window.Ethereum in the completely normal and average way. And it will run through a series of tests, and those tests call wallet APIs, and then the wallet does whatever it has to do, and then they check it against the expected outputs. That's all normal. It's a regular testing framework. The kind of magic that this adds is there's this concept of glue. So right now there's only one glue, and that's the manual glue. And so if you've ever been to, actually, I'll just show you. I can share my screen. Um, all right, let's see if this works. All right, so this is Wallet Test Framework. Hopefully you've seen it. Let's see if my MetaMask is unlocked here. It is. So right now the tests are connected to my wallet. Every time the wallet displays a message, you have to tell the testing framework that something is going on. So in this case, we're adding an Ethereum chain. So this is where you input the information from your wallet. So you copy over your chain name, your network URL, and the chain ID. There we go. And it's giving me, so I don't know if you can see my MetaMask. If not, it's fine. But so it gives me an instruction here. So now it's saying your wallet should be showing an add chain dialog. Approve this request. Okay, I will approve this request. And then you hit complete. And now the tests start running. And so these instructions and these events panels here, they're the manual glue. There's also a way to attach using WebSockets, so you don't need to actually click buttons in the web page. You can just send messages over WebSockets, and that's how I would imagine most of the automation would work. Yeah, this is the output from the test. This is kind of what it looks like. I wasn't really planning on giving a demo, so I don't have a lot prepared here. But yeah, basically the architecture is wallet pops up a message. Then whatever's driving the tests has to click one of these buttons or send a WebSocket message, and then the test will tell the driver what to do with that wallet pop up. So if you're familiar with, say, Selenium or WebDriver tests, it's going to be very similar to that kind of an architecture.
Awesome, thanks.
No problem. Does that kind of work with your web platform test idea, Kyle?
Very similar. Since most of what it's testing is API driven, um, the way that they do it is basically just firing a bunch of API calls. I'm not sure what the architecture is for WPT Live, but the effective output is the same, so I don't really care much. It doesn't have to be the same as like what's happening in WPT Live.
Okay, as long as it does something similar. That makes sense.
Yeah. The whole goal that I see behind this is basically so that rather than us having to copy each other's um, implementations for interoperability, we can instead copy the test framework and just make sure that we're passing the test framework. And then if we notice that there's still differences, then that leads to us adding new tests. And so over time, this becomes kind of like the central point of interop rather than any particular wallet that's implemented some feature first.
I think that's exactly what we're hoping for. So if you're ever planning on adding a new API call, come see us first and maybe we can help write some tests.
Yes, that would be awesome. On the topic of, um, sorry, I'm forgetting my question. It'll come back to me in a second.
So I did put a link in the chat to a blog post with a little bit more detail on our architecture and some very rough diagrams. So if you want to share it around, that's the place to do it, or the thing to share. Next up, we have our presentation on EAP 6963. Assuming we're done with the wallet test framework, so I'll hand it over to Kyle to talk about that.
I see Shane just asked a question, and my question actually just came back to me. Shane, do you want to answer or ask that first? I can ask it as well. He said in chat, is this a Jest environment or could it be?
So we use Mocha. It was the easiest to set up in the system that we use. So I guess a little bit more about the architecture. There's we use Ganache to implement a fake blockchain that the wallet connects to over WebSockets, or over HTTP rather. And so we run Mocha and Ganache in the browser instance, and then or in the web page itself. I looked at Jest as well. Mocha was just the one that seemed to be the easiest to set up.
And you mentioned Argent is not, you haven't figured out how to connect it yet. How do you envision account abstraction wallets connecting with this?
So right now we support just window.ethereum because that's like the lowest common denominator, I think. But we do plan to add support for other connection methods as long as there's an what is it, 1153 or 63, whatever the one that defines uh, the interface provider. We should be able to support it eventually, but right now it's just window.ethereum.
Okay, awesome. Does anybody know if like account abstraction wallets are following that EAP? I think it's 11.9.3 or 5.3, whatever. Belford said, yeah. Sweet. Sounds like it in that case then.
Yeah, like you mean by account extraction? Do you mean like Safe and Argent, or do you mean like the next gen ones that are using the 4.4, like the new kind? Because I know 1193 is good for all of the major smart contract wallets, like already out now.
Okay, that's good to hear because the it was essentially both. Because what I'm figuring is that our next big interop problems that we'll face as like a wallet developers is going to be what's happening with account abstraction, how EOA wallets fit in with account abstraction wallets, and do they line up properly? Because we've already seen that, like for signing, for example, I think it's they need the I don't even know the EIP, but it's like basically is signed contract method in order to actually sign some of these things. So that's like the first example where I noticed that there's like some interop differences that would have to come into play.
So I'd love to include some 4337 style wallets in our testing. So if you know of any, I think BLS wallet might be one of them. Let me know, and I'll add it to our manual tests.
Awesome. I personally don't. The only contact I've had was with people at Argent previously when I was at Wallet uh, Wallet conference hosted by Wallet Connect.
Yeah, because I think so. Argent and Gnosis are two that exist today, right?
The Soul Wallet team is on the server, and they have, I believe, a working alpha. I can reach out to them.
Great. Oh, yeah, I'll give them a try. Thank you.
Seems like discussion may have slowed on that one.
Yeah, I think we're ready to move on.
Okay. So I didn't actually create a presentation per se, but I can do a demo from EIP 5.6 or what is it? I'm not even remembering the 6963.
6963.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. I've done some original testing on this inside of Brave Nightly. Can everybody see that properly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sweet. Okay. So in order to test this, what I was doing, just going to EIP 6963, and then let's see here. I've got Encrypt and Xerion. And it looks like they've all been able to get this working now. So just create a new wallet.
For those who don't remember, 6963 is a multi-wallet discovery protocol so that you can have multiple installed wallets and choose between them.
Yes. I can jump over to the actual EIP to kind of explain how it works a little bit after. So I created that wallet. Let me make sure I've got one here. I am not eligible. Okay, I need to reach out to the Xerion folks about that. And then Encrypt is working fine. So effectively, that's what we're trying to work around here, is the ability to be able to connect multiple wallets at the same time, and for the DApp to be able to distinguish between them. So, for example, in this wallet here, that'll show it is connected now. Looks like the DApp might be in a weird state. Let me see if that might be. Yeah, so this looks like this is a warning that would have popped up based upon some changes that happened recently. So essentially, this will be a perfect target for writing some tests. And actually, I'm planning to work with Sam in order to get that done. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Basically, I want to focus on the spec was the original intention, and then we can write some tests once it's nearing completion. So we feel like the spec is getting to that point, which is why we've asked people to start implementing within the group, and that's kind of one of the things that we want to talk about is can we get to maybe 5 or 10 within the next month or two? It's actually a very simple thing to implement. You're just using events where you wrap around your um, uh, what is it? You wrap around your window Ethereum injection with a few different objects, and it makes it work pretty easy. So not very complicated, but as you can see, I'm able to inject different addresses to the actual wallet itself or to the dApp itself from different wallets, and it's able to connect to them independently. Um, there's also some stuff that I've been working on internally at Brave about how we can go about doing a private mode. So there is some definitions in there, but this is kind of an idea I had when I was working on the spec, and I just kind of dropped it in there. So I'm not sure if other people have noticed how this would work yet in a backwards compatible way. But effectively, what you saw me do there is how I would kick this off is in this very similar way. Um, so the idea that I've been playing with for us is that for legacy dApps, for example, which I should be able to initiate, I can initiate it on this one. So this is a stable that I'm on right here. You can see that it's legacy. So the idea behind this is in order to make this private mode, this has already been injected into the actual wallet itself. But what you can do is hit connect here, and then I can select my wallet itself. And then when I hit plus and connect, it'll automatically grant that permission. So what this means here is that at the point when the user interacts with the connect flow through the wallet, that's when we can initiate injection is after they've selected the address, which then means that we can actually prevent fingerprinting as well. So um, I'll likely do that internally for us, but then I'll show kind of how it works so that other people can kind of copy that paradigm in hopes that we can start to eliminate some fingerprinting issues that we have as well and add some privacy preserving features. So that's kind of the demo of it. I will jump over to the actual EIP itself and drop a link here to kind of walk through how this works. So effectively what it is, like I said, is we're passing some properties in, and this is basically just metadata about your provider. And there's details about what they actually do and stuff like that. And this was where a lot of the discussion actually landed was to be able to discuss these different properties, how they should work, what sort of trust model they should have, what are the security guarantees and things of that nature. And then you take that metadata and you supply it with the actual provider itself, and then you pass it over an event, and that's effectively implementing EIP 6963. So the whole point of this is basically to prevent us from having to basically prototype pollute window.ethereum to try and compete for it so that we can all actually get all of our wallets working together and kind of improve that user experience for the user. So that's the high level explanation of it. The privacy aspect I mentioned is kind of highlighted down in here, but there's no like specific details on how that works. We could even write that as a secondary extension spec potentially in terms of like the UX that would come with it, but that feels very implementation specific. So I'm happy to just engage with people separately on that as well. And is there anything else worth mentioning? I don't believe so. We're currently in peer review state, so yeah, if you guys have the ability to be able to get this on your backlogs and implement, and then let me know. The plan is to make a push here in the next month or two to basically start promoting this and then taking this to dApps and saying, hey, this is the better way that you guys should be approaching this going forward. So that's all I've got on the topic. Any questions?
So I guess what are you looking for from the wallets that are on this call today?
Um, Biggest thing is just being able to get adoption for it. It is an opt-in feature, so we design it in a backward compatible way. That would be the key thing because the more wallets that we can get adopting this, the easier it's going to be for us to be able to approach dApps altogether and say, "Hey, you guys should implement this," because there's a integration point that has to happen between both of us. So if we've got enough wallets supporting this, then it makes it much easier for us to be able to go to the dApps and say, "Hey, you know that cool library you're using like Web3 Modal? Just upgrade the version and you'll be able to pick this feature up real quick." Sweet, that's awesome to hear. I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. I think it's Keops. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, sure. I'm just wondering if we should just implement it right now. It looks great, but it's been stale for a few months and still in the review stage, if I remember well.
Yes.
Um,
So,
and
go
yeah,
ahead.
I'm just worried about injecting more data into every pages the browser loads, if it's worth it or not.
I gotcha. Yeah, so that's kind of the whole goal behind the privacy mode aspect of this is that this because of the event flow model, it's actually possible for us to do this without injecting any data first. You can do this by basically adding an event and then or adding an event listener first because the page fires an event as well. Um, and then effectively what you can do from that is to be able to respond first. So because this creates this event loop, you don't actually have to inject first. You can just choose to add the event lister and then only respond when the page responds to it. That would break backwards compatibility, but that's kind of where that backwards compatible legacy private mode comes into play, which is to start changing some of the things that we're already doing today. But people don't necessarily have to do that, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so we should go for it, right?
Yes. Essentially, at this point, my impression of the spec, having worked on the spec, is that um, we're looking for implementer feedback. We intend to basically take this to finalized state by the end of the year. We're looking for that feedback during the review state so that we can make sure that any sort of things that we missed when we were writing the spec, which is very natural to happen, make them into the spec before we finalize it. So the idea behind this is if we can get people implementing around review in the final call state, we can figure out any sort of things we missed, make changes, coordinate those changes together. And once we've coordinated and decided, yes, this is correct, we can finalize the spec and just say, this is what it is now. That's what you should implement.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Thanks for the question. That's a great question because for people who weren't following the spec, yeah, it may be confusing kind of what state it's at and where it's going, especially with so many EIPs that kind of get left in stale states.
So, kind of on a general note about EIPs, like review would be a good time to start trying to implement EIPs and then maybe having like preview releases, but it's definitely not ready for production. And then last call and final would be like your release candidate, and then your like production release would be around the final time.
Yep.
And
And
that's just
to
for
tie this
general
back,
EIPs, not just not for this one in particular.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. To tie this back to the test framework discussion that we had, This is where we as a wallet development group can actually say any wallet related EIPs have to have tests written before we go to final call. That would be ideal state. That's how actually W3C does it as well. And they place additional requirements which say at least 2 browsers must implement and pass the tests, or all the normative required tests before the spec itself can be moved to finalized state. I don't think we'll jump to that right away, but I'm curious to hear your opinion on that, Sam.
I think that a lot of the discussions around EIPs are going to be a lot easier shortly. We're trying to work on a better governance system, and I've shared it with, I think, at least one of you, probably Kyle. Yeah, so anyways, just wait a bit. We're going to sort some stuff out, and then we'll be able to do things like that. If we want to have like a wallet working group for EIPs, that'll probably be possible in the next month or so. Yeah.
I think this testability requirement is that Kyle mentioned from W3C precedent makes a lot of sense for the interfaces EIPs. It's touching wallets. The wallets have to be. I mean, I think ideally any EIP about like a wallet interface should already have a test in the CI of the wallets that want to support it when it gets to final, because otherwise it's just like kind of a precarious, under-tested thing. But I do think that if interface requirements, specifically wallet interfaces, wanted to sort of like have their own version of this process, it doesn't have to be imposed by EIP. It could just be like all wallet devs wants to set the precedent of like submitting Gherkin tests with your interface EIP, as you know, like it doesn't have to be a requirement for us to do it anyways. And just like even plain language English descriptions of what you would test could be enough to help people review it, you know? Oops.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, like we can be completely separate from the EIP's process as well. Like it's however you want to organize, right?
Yeah, one of the things that I think we're going to need to figure out with the core devs is when they expose new RPC calls for the nodes, how do we go about exposing that and making sure that works within the wallets? But that's something we can kind of figure out along the way.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting point. Like especially with like get proof and get max priority free per gas is like recent examples, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, it seems like they're open to these types of things in the discussions I was having with Dan on these types of stuff. So they want to stay connected. Their biggest thing is they're just getting slowed down, and I completely understand where they're coming from with that.
Cool. So, on a similar note, I put a link to my sort of competing proposal for this in the agenda. It's a much longer timeline, as in nobody's even started implementing it. This is EIP 7039. Just throwing it out there. Take a look at it, comment on it, tell me why it won't work. Yeah, thanks.
I see there's a lot of topic happening in the chat about reverse DNS. Should we move that to just discussion and voice?
Yeah, please do. I think we're done pretty much talking about everything else. So, yeah.
I haven't read through it. Can somebody summarize it?
I was just looking through the EIP, and the only thing that kind of stuck out at first was the RDNS field. And I guess I was just kind of raising a point of like, I'd intuitively imagine that to be like, say, URI with the, non-reversed one. Though I understand, pardon me for not knowing your proper name. I'll call you Bumble. Raise a point there around the usefulness of having it reversed in a large set. Though, just wondering there, like, if that's like a set in stone thing, if there's any alternate, preferences, or if anyone else has kind of raised anything around that.
Yeah, I'm happy to give some backstory because it's been going back and forth for a long time with the wallets that have reviewed it so far. There was the initial, like, I think one of the initial proposals was just to have an arbitrary string with no constraints or implied functionalities. I was actually an advocate of RDNS just by analogy to manifests, because in decentralized, like, I think that given the decentralized nature of the development here, you want people to be able to declare themselves and sort of like vendor the namespace of possible strings. And reverse DNS is used for manifests for that reason. Sort of like a top level domain is something that most commercial or non-commercial organizations get early and stick to. And if all future versions can be sort of subdomains of that, then it creates this sort of like self-sorting, self-organizing namespace. It's sort of like an IETF tradition that comes from Java or whatever. But to your point about using normal URLs or some other URI scheme, or having constraints that make RDNS more functional, the PR I linked in the chat is one of the active reviewing wallet developers' proposal to make it more explicit, both the rationale for it and what you can assume about it and what you can't. So I do think that, like, I think it should be a DNS under the control of the maker of the wallet. Even if everyone's anon, even if it's a nonprofit, like, I want to leave open the design space for wallets that are not products in the commercial capitalist sense. But I do think it's left open for future EIPs to extend this to have a HTTP based verification method. Like, you could use a key record on DNS or a did well known or some other way to put key material at a URL so that people could use an RDNS that is associated with the key that signs the packages in package managers or app stores, or some other sort of bidirectional verification. But I think it also, the consensus was that while that would make sense as an extension spec, some people would rather just use them as arbitrary strings. And on both sides, wallet sides and dApp sides, it might not make sense to sort of like make the onus of verification a reason to not support this this standard, since it's sort of like urgent to get just more secure basic connection, wallet dApp connection. Sorry, that was kind of a brain dump instead of an answer. If you have follow-up questions or anyone else has questions, I could maybe be more useful.
Yeah, no, that's great. It makes a lot of sense. Something I kind of take away from that is the intended use of that is primarily around future desire to verify potentially. Not in all cases, of course, as you mentioned, some people won't actually have the domain that they put there. But but generally that like it's not trying to replace the value of like UUID there, right? Like UUID is the ultimate identifier of a given wallet, right?
And I think there was originally two different identifiers, one for the wallet instance and one for the wallet code base. So like one would be for like, this is a MetaMask wallet, and one would be like, this is the specific build of MetaMask on this device. So if you generate that UUID at build time or at installation, then you have a UUID for each individual wallet out there in the world. But if you wanted to know that that was, you know, like an official release of MetaMask, or like, you know, actually came from a MetaMask binary, the verification would be useful, because then you could sort of like have some two-way verification between that UUID marked individual wallet and like which version of MetaMask it's claiming to be. So in a sense, there's like the identification of the wallet for sort of local purposes, and then there's the like is MetaMask flag that this is replacing in the basic window.ethereum model. So like it's sort of like, to be backwards compatible and to be self-attested the way is MetaMask is, you want to allow people to make an unverifiable or unverified claim about what kind of software it's running. And in those subset of use cases where it matters that it's actually an official build, or, you know, an original unmodified binary or whatever, then you would have the verification extension option.
So Kyle, you raised your hand there.
Yeah, I was just gonna add a little bit of flavor to that, in the sense of like one of the key things that the dApp developers and the dApp library developers that have been involved in this development of the spec so far have brought up is that they want the ability to be able to create UXs on the dApp page that load very quickly. So, for example, they can cache the images in a way that would allow them to basically be able to load it before the actual wallet initiates its injection, or like basically fires its event. And so there's some different like rehydration schemes and a few other features that they've mentioned that this would allow them to do to be able to maintain persistence between a wallet that basically changes per version, or changes per session effectively, is kind of the idea. So that's what this identifier is really about, is being able to replace that and formalize effectively that is MetaMask, that is Brave Wallet, that is Coinbase Wallet convention that we kind of all just picked up but never actually wrote down. And that was kind of what they had said is, hey, we want that actually written down. This seems like a good place for it. Can you put it in? And originally I was very much against this because the identifier was unverified. It could be tampered with. But eventually I think their arguments were pretty sound in terms of kind of the benefits that come from this. We just have to be careful with it. Very similar to user agent strings. If you put too much information in those user agent strings in a browser, you can actually cause a lot of compatibility issues. So that's kind of where a lot of the bike shedding on this topic went, was how much information, what do we do, how do we secure it, that type of stuff. So this is a great question, actually. I've got a question. How many wallet developers are not in that Telegram channel? Can you guys like raise your hand or type it in chat?
Which Telegram channel?
The EIP 6963 task force.
Well, thank you. I'm not.
Okay. I figured that might be the case. I see a lot of people popping up. Go ahead and speak.
Could you post a link to that channel, please?
Yes, I will do that. And if that doesn't work, I will drop my handle in the All Wallet Devs, and I can invite people directly as well. But let me see if I can get a link.
The link was on the extension registry channel, was shared by Pedro.
Awesome. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.
So for reference, this is just kind of where a lot of the discussion has happened, because Pedro was the lead instigator in being able to get a bunch of people into the conversation. Going forward, personally, I wasn't a big fan of using Telegram. I'd love to be able to move discussions like we had about RDNS directly onto GitHub and have it during an issue. But that's something that we can kind of figure out going forward and stuff like that about how do we actually want to engage? Do we want Discord? Do we want Telegram? These types of things, because having wallet developers who aren't aware of these conversations isn't really good.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out and talking about it, giving us an update. I really appreciate it. Yeah, if we want, we can just hang out and talk some more. Feel free to take off. I think this is the end of the official meeting. Yeah, go for it, Kyle.
I just wanted to take a second to promote something that's happening at ETH Dev Connect in Istanbul. So this is an Ethereum Foundation sponsored event. This is Wallet Uncon. We're currently looking for proposals effectively for people to bring forth to this unconference. So I don't know if you guys have been to unconferences before, but we tried to highlight it here. We'd love to get a lot of wallet developers there so that we can start to have more discussions about things that we want to build together, how we want to improve the wallet ecosystem, how we want to improve wallet UX and stuff. So if you guys are in or around Istanbul at that time, it would be amazing to have you guys come. Reach out to me or Bumblefudge, who are both helping to organize this. And we're currently in communications with the Ethereum Foundation, who's actually helping to fund this basically one-day event.
Yeah, it's officially part of Dev Connect in the sense that like it's taking place in a room that was booked in a bundle with the, like, I don't know, official events. I'm not sure what the distinction is, but I'd mentioned that we're doing 10-minute lightning talks in the morning and 20 and half-hour open workshops. So we can't plan all the workshops in advance, but we can plan a few to sort of like seed the schedule with a few fixed proposals in advance. But yeah, definitely lightning talks, particularly if people want to demo interface EIPs or design patterns or anything that wants a lot of horizontal review from other wallets. Those would be the ideal lightning talks.
I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Thanks a lot for the chat. It was great.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Oh, take care,
Thanks.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you. Bye.